Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live stream on Professional Genealogist Reacts. As usual, looks like I need to adjust my background settings a little bit. Try to make it a little bit better. I think that's pretty good. We'll keep it like that. So welcome, everybody. Of course, as soon as I start the live stream, my internet starts slowing down. So hopefully it's coming through clear enough. We'll do our typical say hello to everybody. Hello, Tasha from Minnesota, Jen from Wisconsin, Alexandra from Koblenz, Germany. We have Markton here, Drea watching from my computer instead of mobile for once. Hi from Massachusetts. Hello, Drea. Markton coming in from Panama, Central America. Okay, cool. Katie Gray coming in from Ohio. We have Texas Gamer Mom coming in from West Texas. Elias Hicks from Northwest Ohio. Oh, our illustrious Matt Bishop coming in. Hello, wonderful to have you. Sean, good to have you as usual, coming in from Ireland. And of course, Matt also coming in from Ireland, but Northern Ireland, coming in from Belfast. Daniel M. on time for once. Welcome. Hola, Gazillion PT, our wonderful Portuguese representative. And Daniel coming in from Bristol, UK. So, all right, well, I got through everybody pretty quickly. Yeah, hopefully I keep getting these signals about the internet, so hopefully it's coming through decently enough. Maybe I should, let's see if there's some stuff I can close that maybe a little ease things up a little bit. So I'm sure a lot of you have the typical experience of being in genealogy and having a billion different windows open for all sorts of stuff. So get some of these closed. And yeah, all right. So okay, we have someone else coming in from Groningen in Netherlands, Nick Brokema. Wonderful to have you. Always great to have the Dutch representing in the chat. So hello, Goedendag. It is a bit pixelated. Well, hopefully it gets better. I still need to get my hard line connected, set up. I have that power bank thing and all of that. I just billion things on my list and I just haven't gotten to it yet. Let's do the screen. Okay. Let's adjust that a bit. There we go. That looks pretty decent. Guten Abend to you too. All right, yeah, I guess let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So hopefully this isn't too pixelated. Let's see if I can close anything else to clear some of this up or something. Yeah, I really need to get the hard wire connected in for this. So the last few ones I've been actually having a lot of issues with this too, but I also wonder if it's my roommate's working, and so if he's really busy doing stuff. All right, readable, good. Gelaced. I have a question. How do you separate out matches when your tree has pedigree collapse? Well, that becomes a difficult thing, especially depending on the pedigree collapse and how close it is. If it's something where you have like grandparents who were first cousins, it becomes a big mess because everybody that you're related to through those sides related in two ways basically, and so yeah, I don't really have a good method necessarily beyond kind of just trying to triangulate with family that's specifically from one side of that family tree. So like, if your two grandparents were first cousins, then basically, you have to you have to try to separate out the segments in a sense to be able to triangulate with your matches. So when you look at the segments that you share with cousins from that side of your family, then trying to correlate which segments of those that you share, which are coming from the one side of your family and then from the other side. It's really in depth. And that's one that, that's like a whole lesson on DNA Painter sort of thing. Hopefully that makes sense, kind of what I'm explaining. Maybe I'll try to show some sort of sense of it or something. No, I'm not going to be able to do that without accidentally doxing somebody. But yeah, basically, let's see if we can find a pedigree collapse tree. Oh, perfect. We'll take something from Diane Southard's website. Let's see. It's the best one to use. And this could be a useful. I haven't read through this article here, but might be a useful article for people to read through to answer this question. Put that in the chat. Calculating pedigree collapse. But she has this really cool image of kind of, what you're looking at when you're looking at pedigree collapse. So basically, these two here are first cousins because Charlie's mom, Betsy, is the sister of Bob, who is Cindy's father. So when you're trying to figure out the matches, trying to figure out which segments pair up with the cousins from which side, in a sense. So when I say which side, it would be determining the side from this ancestor. So between Adam and Anna, most specifically for the pedigree collapse part, but then also for the other ancestors in that generation, in a sense. So, for Charlie, or I guess Dan and Diane and all of these descendants and all of that, I'm trying to think of a really good way to explain this. But basically, you're looking at something where once you look at the segments and you start to find matches that are more distantly related through, let's say, Adam's side specifically, and then Anna's side. So once you find the matches that are through Anna's side, you can then take a look at what segments triangulate with your other cousins from the descendants of Adam and Anna. And when you look at that, you can then try to correlate, okay, well, this specific segment lines up with these segments. So now we can assign those segments to Anna's side. And then when you're looking at that same match, and then all of a sudden you have you have a match through Adam's side where you can now correlate those segments to one of these other matches over here, then you can start to triangulate that. So that's one way. I'm not going to get too in depth. This article seems like it's a pretty good article, kind of explaining the in-depth stuff of it. And as you can see, it's not very straightforward. There's like so many, like, yeah, it's very difficult. Honestly, pedigree collapse in a sense can be much harder than endogamy in some senses. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay. Not sure what you mean. That pretty decent was like Van Dyke and Mary Poppins. Oh, I said pretty decent at some point. Okay. There's the article. Check that out. Calculating the pedigree collapse effect in your DNA matches. Which I think that's more kind of figuring out how much DNA you're supposed to share with each match. But Yeah, I don't know. Probably a helpful article. And then hello, Sharon, coming in from rainy New York. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm getting signals that my internet should be doing a lot better, so hopefully I'm coming in much clearer. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. All right, to the Reddit question. So first, randomly appearing DNA, which I'm sure a lot of you saw in the title and may have been wondering, what is he talking about? This is the question. Hello, genealogy fans. Today I received the MyHeritage DNA results from my dad and paternal grandfather. Last year, I'd already tested myself and my mother and maternal grandfather, and I had been color coding matches that belonged to my mother and color coding the rest as being a DNA match on my paternal side. Now that I've received those new DNA tests, I've found that quite some matches do not match my mom or my dad. I also have situations where only one of my granddads matches, but not one of my parents. Or where, for example, my mom matches with 20 centimorgans as somebody where I match 60. In all these situations, it seems like I somehow matching people that do not belong to my maternal or paternal side, or I'm matching with more centimorgans than either of my parents. How can this happen? Does the DNA just happen to recombine in such a way that it seems like I match these people, but I'm actually not related? I'd like to know what's happening here. If any additional information is needed to answer this question, I'm happy to add some. All right, so there are some questions that I would have right off the bat. Number one, you mentioned received MyHeritage DNA results, but then you don't necessarily say if everyone else tested through MyHeritage or if people tested elsewhere, and then you uploaded it to databases where you could compare them all together, which you could have done that on MyHeritage, just uploaded every single one in MyHeritage. And if that's the case, that could be part of it. Is if your mom tested in one place, you tested in another, and then you try to compare in the same database to the same match, it's going to look different because each site tests pretty similar the amount of SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, the DNA markers in a sense that they're looking at to determine ancestry. And so each site's testing about 600,000 to 700,000 of these SNPs, but each site, while they're testing a large majority of the same SNPs, each site's also testing some specific SNPs that only they test, and then some sites may have some overlap with others that they don't have with some of the other sites. And so just basically there's different SNPs being tested in the different tests. And so when you compare from different sites, it actually can make it look very different. That's actually why GEDmatch has a tool called the SuperKit tool. And what the SuperKit tool does is if you've tested at multiple sites and you upload your DNA to GEDmatch, then you can use the SuperKit tool to merge all of your different DNA tests together into one SuperKit. So if you have 670,000 SNPs tested on one site and 730,000 SNPs tested on another, and then you put those together, and there was I don't know, maybe there was like 600,000 SNPs that were overlapped and everything else was kind of different, then you're looking at almost 800,000 SNPs in this profile now. Now that's just very generalized numbers. I don't know if really that's exactly what it is, but then when you've tested at multiple sites, like let's say you've done a DNA test through Family Tree DNA and Ancestry and 23andMe and MyHeritage, and you've done the tests for them, not uploaded to them, then you're going to have all of the specific SNPs that only those sites test. And if you upload this to GEDmatch and then create a SuperKit of that, that's going to have every single possible tested SNP across all of those sites in one kit. Now you can only compare that kit in the GEDmatch database, but it's kind of a way to utilize that sort of thing. But that's the flip side to what this question is, where with the difference of SNPs, if they've tested at different places, it could be that's why you're getting the different amounts. Another part of it is the misreads. each website has a general about 1% margin of error in just the reading of the SNPs. So they have to go and read, these 700,000 SNPs or whatever on average. And if there's 1% that are wrong, that's 7,000 SNPs that are wrong across your entire, the reading. So what that could cause is, if there's enough of misread in maybe like your mom's kit in certain segments, they may not think those segments are matching because those false SNPs, those misreads, skew it just enough for the algorithm that they're using to figure this out to say, no, that's not a viable segment. Now, this part gets to another thing that's available on GEDmatch, which is a very, very advanced genetic genealogy tool. And this one is one that's kind of not quite as useful for consumer kits. It's much more useful if you're dealing with kits that have margins of error that are higher than 1%. Basically, the reading of the DNA was much less than 99%, which happens with a lot of investigative genetic genealogy kits, but also if you ever do artifact testing. But there may be other cases that you may get low call rates for some reason, 90% call rates or something. Well, they have what's known as Q matching on GEDmatch. And what Q matching is Q matching is looking at what's known as a Phred score, a PHRED score. And basically what a Phred score is, it's kind of like, it's the base call accuracy. Yeah, go ahead, do that. So here I've pulled up this article on Science Direct. So base calling accuracy, and you can see Phred score is used to indicate the measure of base quality in DNA sequencing. So the bases basically being those A, T, C's, and G's, and the SNPs being the A, T, C, and G's, where only specific people will have that specific letter on that segment. So in a sense, when you're looking at SNPs, when they find a SNP and they find a sequence of SNPs that they're able to say, okay, we're correlating these SNPs to the European population, let's say, but also think of this with DNA matching because that's really where it is. But we're correlating these SNPs to the European population, then that means every time they find those specific A, T, C, or G's in whatever specific spot, then those people must be coming from European ancestry because only people with European ancestry would have that. So that's kind of a really basic idea of that. Now, when Phred score is dealing with all of the bases and the quality of the DNA sequencing. So when they sequence this DNA and they come up with, well, at every spot there's A, T, C, or G, each spot has a different quality score in a sense of how well they were able to read that A, T, C, or G. And so certain spots may have much lower call rates with how it's being read. And there could be a lot more kind of going on with what they might be choosing for whatever is that base pair. So, whatever they choose for that base, if it ends up being a specific SNP, a specific marker that they're looking for at that spot, then that's going to change the reading. And if you look at the quality score of that DNA segment and it's kind of a low one, that could actually cause you to change your thinking of, well, what am I, the correlation of that segment. Now, like I said, this is super advanced DNA stuff. And for anyone who's ever bought a whole genome sequence kit, or maybe a full genome sequence kit, or you've done NGS testing, next generation sequence testing, outside of the direct to consumer stuff, or kind of the more niche sort of kits, you may have noticed that kits will be called 30x or 100x or whatever. And what that means is 30x is how many times they're reading through the genome to try to identify the segments, each base the base call or whatever. So when they're going through all of those, if they only do it 30 times, then when they try to figure out the reading of it, well, the accuracy maybe it's going to be a bit lower than if they read it 100 times, which if you buy 100x test, it's usually going to be a lot more expensive. Actually, let's pull up Nebula because I think they have both options. So, all right, so we have Nebula whole genome sequencing. And let's see if we can find them talking about 30x. Okay, so here we go. So here they have the deep and the ultra deep. And you can see 30x DNA sequencing depth generates over 100 gigabytes of DNA data. Basically, they're reading each one 30 separate times. Then for this one, the deep, they're doing it 100 times. Now, whenever you are, I can't say for sure if every single medical grade DNA test, genetic test that you get through like a genetic counselor or, an actual doctor, I believe those are all supposed to be 100x in their reading of each DNA base. But even in the consumer market, you can get it, and then you can see the DNA data is much more because it's including all of that stuff. Now, jumping back to the whole Fred score thing, which actually let's use that. Okay, yeah, that's good. So when talking about the Fred score, I kind of was explaining all of that because when you think of the Fred score, it's basically just how many incorrect bases do you worry about in a sense. So you can see here, Fred's score of 20 indicates the likelihood of finding one incorrect base call among 100 bases. In other words, the precision of the base call is 99%. And so as you change that, the base or the precision either goes down or goes up, depending on, is your Fred score going to be a 10 or 20, a 30, a 40, a 50? And if you do like a 1-to-1 comparison in GEDmatch, I think they'll even kind of tell you what Fred score they used. But there's also a Q score comparison tool in GEDmatch so that you can adjust it to try to make up for certain things. So it's mainly used in consumer kits for comparing 23andMe to a MyHeritage kit. Because like we said, there's the differences of reads in what they're reading in each one. So when one's trying to come up with a segment where the other one might not have certain SNPs read, by changing the Q score, it's going to kind of forgive that and still show that as a matching segment. So that's kind of the usefulness of it for general genealogy. But what I also found a use for it with an investigative genetic genealogy was using this for, low grade tests which had low call rates. So a lot of in-depth explanation about basically why you might be getting differences between you and your parents, and getting these randomly appearing DNA segments. So there is a mixture of things. So could, like, just to recap, I guess a real quick recap, the main things that it could possibly be is that it could be that if you're testing on different sites, the different readings through the different sites, because they're testing different DNA, or slightly different DNA segments, that could cause a difference if you're comparing them from different sites. But even if they are from the same site, one of the issues may be running into is just the issue of the errors in reading the DNA. Hopefully that explains a lot of stuff. I think I'm just going to go ahead and call this reviewed. This question was reviewed by professional genealogists on April 2nd, 2024. Okay. Did I change the flare already? Reviewed. Save. There we go. Okay. Oakley Dokley. So that one is Dunzo. Let me check chat. Not much going on in chat right now. Hello, Sharon from. Oh wait, I already said hello. Hello, Mike. But hello, Sharon. Still hello. Hello, Anna from Western New York. What have I missed? Not much. We really just got started 25 minutes ago. Jeez. Oh my gosh, I talk. Ugh. All right, let's jump on to the next question. Now, I figured I'd go ahead and answer this question because it's pretty simple because I kind of just answered it in the recent one, and someone actually already saw kind of replied. But Y DNA question. I recently did a Y37 test on family tree DNA. How do I interpret it? I have a match, but it's not anyone with my surname, which is Carmelo. I'm trying to break down a brick wall. What should I do? Any advice would be great. And then they do give a bit more information, genetic distance of 4 with this person, and then the haplogroup, which doesn't really help us with anything in the match side. So basically, with a genetic distance of 4 at a Y37 test, that's going to be really distant. It's doubtful that this is going to be a close relative. When you're looking at the Y37 or the Y67, which I don't think they sell anymore, or the Y111s, what these are testing what's known as short tandem repeats, or STRs. So before we were talking about SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. Now we're talking about short tandem repeats, which are basically looking at SNPs that repeat in a certain sequence in certain spots. So basically base pairs that repeat in a certain sequence at certain spots in your DNA. And the way that your DNA recombines each generation causes these STR markers to be useful in DNA identification and stuff like that. And so with Y-DNA testing, you can have these STR markers, and that's kind of the basic test that you take with family tree DNA. They can give you a good idea about matches, but not very specific, not very specifically, basically within the past 1,000 years or so. But, so like an STR marker, you look at a spot and it would be like ACT, 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 ACT. Well, that was ACT repeating 4 different times. So at that spot, that would be a reading of 4. And then sometimes you can have it where it's like ACT, ACTA, or I guess, yeah, something like that. And then it'd be called like a 2.3, or I forgot exactly how they do it. But by doing that, they can get an idea of how related you are. And with the WISE test, the higher the amount of STRs you're testing, the better you can get an idea. So Y37 is like the lowest available now. It used to be Y11. They'd only test 11 STRs. With 37, it's obviously a bit better. But with a genetic distance of 4, what that means is that at 4 of the 37 STR spots they were looking at, you in this match had different readings. So that tells them that, okay, you both probably have some sort of a patrilineal shared ancestor within the past. Now I'm just guesstimating. Actually, we can look it up. Y37 genetic distance score. Because there's basically a scale where yeah, this actually looks pretty good. So Stack Exchange. Okay, that image is from Family Tree DNA. Okay, cool. So what we have here, we have the number of markers. We have the amount of STRs tested. Now, obviously, this is an very old chart. All right. a very old chart because now we can test Y111 and then it goes into the big DNA tests. But you can see we have 12, 25, 37, 67, and then the genetic distance. So here we have genetic distance of 0 to 37, so very tightly related. Okay, yeah, we'll keep going with this one because I was like very tightly related. That's kind of a weird way to put it, but I guess I get it. And then 1 tightly related, 2 and 3 related. Let's see what ISOGG. Oh, they don't have it. All right, let's see if we can find. What is this one? This is something. This is different. Okay, so I thought this is what I was pulling up before, but apparently not. Okay, so data derived using JD McDonald's 2 most recent common ancestry calculator. So basically, number of markers and then genetic distance. It's using the same sort of scale, but it just kind of gives you a better idea with the 111s and stuff. But you can see as you start to get out, it gets much further. Now, with very tightly related, I guess what I would call that is very tightly related would be. Well, actually, I wonder if that's what they're showing here is how many generations that might be within. So, like 4 generations, 6 generations, 7, 10, 12. I don't know if that's exactly what they're showing, but that's kind of like what it would be in a sense. Yeah, I wish I knew what that was coming from because I click it and it doesn't. Oh wait, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so that is what they're saying. Okay. So it was the article, I just missed it. um so for 37 at a genetic distance of 4, we're looking at 24 generations. So 24 your parents are 1 generation, grandparents are 2, great grandparents are 3, and so on. So, you're looking at really far back because if you think 24 generations averaging out at 30 years a generation, that's what is that? That's 72, 720 years. And honestly, I think that's kind of an underestimate. My guess, if you're matching someone at a genetic distance of 4, at 37, you could be related to them within the past couple of thousand years. Um, so, yeah, maybe these charts aren't the greatest, but they give you an idea, kind of. So, honestly, what I would suggest, if you really want to try to dig into every possible, nook and cranny that you can, big Y testing on family tree DNA isn't necessarily going to do much of anything for you, because it's just going to give you a better idea of, well, how distant is this match. What it does do is it does prepare you for other matches that may show up that could be closer, and then you have a much better idea. But then it also gives you something that you can upload to other Y-DNA databases, which there aren't many. The one I always talk about is YFull, and YFull has a lot of people who upload their whole genome sequence DNA tests. So like Nebula, like I showed earlier. So if you get a DNA test that you can upload in a YFull, then you can access their matching database because they do matching just like family tree DNA. So you can see, maybe there are matches that have only done whole genome sequencing for some reason, and they may be really worthwhile matches for your Y-DNA stuff or whatever. Now, I think YFull may allow STR marker tests to be uploaded, but I think you're really limited in what you get. And it does cost money to do YFull. I think it's just like a one-time payment, though. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. So we're gonna go ahead and call that reviewed, even though that took way longer than I was expecting. I was figuring that'd be really quick, but I always have to go way too in depth, don't I? What am I gonna say here? This question has been reviewed. Oh wait, was reviewed. This question was reviewed. Why? Okay. All right. Let's see. We have Camo Jan jumping in. Wonderful to have you. Alexandra, we were concentrated listening. Wonderful to hear. How pricey are Y DNA tests? They can really vary. I think the Y37, the cheapest one, is around $100, at least around holidays. I'm sure you could get it for probably about $100 or cheaper. But I think they range for the Y STR kits up to the Y111. I think they go up to like the 200 something marker. But once you get into the big Y stuff, I think that's like $400, or it's not cheap. Not cheap. Let's see. Okay. So, okay, yeah, 37s 119, Y111 249, and then the big Y is 449. So big Y does the short tandem repeat, so you can see STR markers, and it does the SNPs, whereas these others are just STR. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. All right. Paul, hi from Shetland. Well, hello, Paul. Wonderful to have you. Stephen, hello, my brother. Idea for you. Behind the scenes look at being a professional genealogist and professional YouTuber. Love your content. Stay awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's something that I've been trying to get some sort of behind the scenes content for my Patreon. And I do have a bit here and there, which are basically just like deleted clips from when I record my reactions and stuff. But yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to do. I think I need to actually build a team of people working with me before I can get to that point. I'm still basically doing most everything by myself, except for my editor, Kenny, who helps me with my reactions. And of course, I'm getting the unstable signal again. Ugh. All right. How about copying and pasting comment after reviewing? Yeah, it's that's not a bad idea. I think I've done that before, but then I try to copy and paste other stuff and it ends up I copy and paste like links and stuff for the chat, so it ends up getting lost anyway. Yeah, Family Tree DNA does have sales on their tests sometimes. Honestly, they have them all the time. I'm sure they just had their spring sale. There's probably going to be a summer sale coming up. There's almost always a sale over a lot of the holidays. So like Thanksgiving, there's usually going to be a sale. Halloween, I think sometimes there's a sale. Christmas, there will definitely be a sale. And then there's almost always a New Year's sale too. Yikes, Big Y is pricey. Yes, it is. But, it's some advanced testing stuff. And one of the things that, we're hopeful in the future is that things will get cheaper. As time goes on, which they have before. Things used to be really expensive, and now it's gotten decently cheaper for the tests. I've paid for Big Y and MT for myself and my father. That's always good to get both the Big Y and mitochondrial, but getting yourself and your father, that gives you both your mitochondrial and your father's mitochondrial, which are different. And that's I actually had my dad take a mitochondrial DNA test just for that same reason. Family Tree DNA always offers coupons on their test during Roots Tech. Yeah, I doubt any of those work now. Usually they're only good within like 30 days of the last day of Roots Tech, which I think would basically be like today or tomorrow, or like within the week at the very least. So, okay, so now we're gonna get into this question. DNA endogamy shared match analysis. Dear Jarrett, hi, thanks. New GEDmatch DNA endogamy tool, which I think what they're talking about is the endogamy auto cluster tool that came out, which you haven't seen that video on my main channel, go check that out. I am also an Ashkenazi Jew. I was watching your other video on genetic genealogy for Jewish ancestry and how to overcome. Great video. Thank you. I have a question. You offer different methods based on where you test. I am wondering if, let's say, you tested family tree DNA, download your data, and upload to Ancestry, which unfortunately you can't do, but let's continue. Upload to Ancestry DNA, for which you provide two different methodologies. I don't know if you can do this. It is just an example. To find other matches and use their tools when you get your results. Do you use the formula for each respective site when analyzing your shared matches, or just the FTDNA one because that is where you tested? Thanks. Okay, so yeah, so to clarify a bit here, in the video, I basically talk about how when you're looking at endogamous matches, there are certain techniques that you can use to help you figure out which matches may be the most genealogically relevant. And to give a general overview, first the question, what's endogamy? Well, endogamy is when a population group only marries other people within the same population group over and over and over for many and many generations. And thus the people who descend from that population group end up being related to everybody else from that population group in tons of ways. And it makes it so when you DNA test, if you're from that population group, you match everyone else from that same population group at way higher amounts of DNA than you would expect otherwise. So like when you look at your shared centimorgan project, I'll just pull that up. So when you look at something like this, the shared centimorgan project, if you come from an endogamous population, this is probably not going to be as useful for you. So through work, trial and error, by myself and many other people over multiple years, a lot of us started to slowly pick up on certain things we would notice about the matches that we were able to identify with endogamous populations. And the main thing was dealing with the segments. So we came up with some techniques. I'm not going to go too in depth with it, but the basic techniques are: one, looking at the longest shared segment. So when you see your DNA match, look and see what's the longest shared segment that we have. And depending on the size, it may change how you look at that match. If the longest shared segment's 9 centimorgans, that match is not very good and is going to go much lower in your list. If the longest shared segment's 30 centimorgans, that's a great match, and you're going to want to put that higher in your list of matches to look at. So it's just a matter of figuring out which matches are the most useful to look at because you have the highest possibility of actually finding out how you're related to them. So the other thing that you can look at is the average segment size. So before we mentioned the longest segment, so we just look at one segment, the longest one. Well, now we look at all of the segments. So what's the total amount of DNA divided by the number of segments? And if it's above 10 now this is for Jewish ancestry, each endogamous population is different in how you're going to, what numbers you'll use for the segments. But for Jewish ancestry, if you use an average of 10 centimorgan segments, that can help you really decipher your list. So that's one of the things that they're talking about. The other thing I mentioned in the video is that each site has different tools and filtering options to go through your match list. And because of that, there are certain techniques that you can only use on certain sites. So basically, to kind of answer their question, the methodologies in terms of the segments. So looking at average segment size, looking at the longest segment, that is something that you can do across all the sites. How what type of numbers you use for that, whether it's a 10 centimorgan average segment size or 13 centimorgan average segment size, or maybe even a 20 centimorgan average segment size, which in my work in some Cajun family trees, that actually ended up being what we needed to do, was 20 centimorgan average segment sizes, but it can vary. So that can be used across all the sites. But when it comes to the specific things on each site, that really has more to do with the options you're given on each site. So as an example, 23andMe is the only site, as far as I know, where you can actually sort your matches by how many segments you share. So not how large the segments are or anything like that, just how many segments you share. So you can look at the people who have the most segments that you share, and you can look at the people who have the least amount. And that's an interesting way to be able to pick out matches that you may not otherwise see, which I actually utilized that in my own family tree and was able to find some really interesting stuff, actually finding new branches of the family through that method. But that's something that, unless the other sites install a sort by the number of segments, you're not going to be able to do that. Now, you do mention uploading the Ancestry DNA. Unfortunately, you cannot upload to Ancestry DNA. It'd be amazing if they allowed that. I don't know if that's necessarily in the works. Let's hope. But of course, there's a lot of things we've been hoping for with Ancestry for a long time. So hopefully that clarifies things, in that, there's kind of two separate ideas of how to go about it. One, which is the segment size stuff, which you can, like I said, use across all sites. The other being the specific filtering options that each site has, which you can then utilize to your advantage. So another example of one that you can utilize to your advantage that the other sites don't have is with MyHeritage and 23andMe. And I believe Ancestry is going to be rolling this out eventually. I think they announced it at Roots Tech, is looking at your shared matches amount of shared DNA between you and your match. So when you look at a match, you can also look at a list of shared matches, and in family tree DNA and for a long time Ancestry, I think that's going to change soon. And if you look at your shared matches, all you see is how much do you match your shared matches. But how much your match matches the shared matches is a big deal, because when you're dealing with an endogamous population, they're kind of related to everybody. So you'll often see that you'll find everybody in your shared match list. The only thing is, the matches that need to stand out in the shared match list are the ones that are matching you and your match at a significant amount. So if you're matching somebody at 150 centimorgans, but your shared match is only matching them at 15 centimorgans, well, that's not a very good shared match to look into. But then you see another one where you're matching at 100 centimorgans and your shared match is matching at 150. Well, both of you are matching at a good amount. That might be one where there is something significant going on. But that's only something you can do if that site allows you to see both what your match shares and your shared match shares. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Let me check chat, because I see there's a good amount of stuff going on here. Interesting. Elias says, if you put a kit in your shopping cart on Ancestry, it will allow you to purchase at that price even after the sale has ended. I've done this twice. Oh, interesting. So yeah, so I guess if you want to buy a DNA test, but you're not quite sure if you want to do it just yet when the sale is going on, you can put it in your cart and just wait. That's pretty cool. All right. Okay, I see Joseph Van Proch is in again, who last time when we talked, he had that bit of Nigerian, which I said, based on what it seemed of his ancestry, may be coming from Suriname. So Mom's results, Ashkenazi with a little bit of Central Asian. Dad's results, the Ashkenazi, the North African, the Italian, and that Nigerian. Your results, which you got a little bit more of the Nigerian than your dad, but a little less the North African. So I wonder if it seems like you inherited a lot of that DNA from your dad. And so it makes sense that maybe the readings are going to be slightly different. How did I inherit Middle Eastern DNA? My guess is that's kind of just a slight misreading of what was from your dad being read as North African, Italian, and the Nigerian. And then from what your mom is being read, that Central Asian. My guess is that because of those, that's where it kind of got mixed up. And it seems like part of that has to do with because when you got the DNA from your dad, the recombination possibly seem to have a lot of the Nigerian, Italian, or at least what they're reading is Nigerian, Italian, North African. So basically that DNA from your Surinamese ancestry, you inherited a lot of it. And then how could you be more than your dad? It's only 0.1% more. So just, it's like these slight misreads, the slight variations of things that it's just, these DNA test percentages are not perfect. Most rural populations pretty much everywhere were quite endogamous. No, I have no hard data. That's what I could perceive in Portuguese genealogy. I mean, it really varies. The thing is that for it to be like a serious case of endogamy, it has to be like tons of generations, not just like 3 or 4, but like, 20, 30 plus. That's one of the reasons why for Jewish DNA, it's so significant because, it's, 5,000 years for the most part of largely only Jews marrying and having children with other Jews. Now, of course, that has not been the case for, every single thing. People have married in and out of that who are not Jewish. People can convert today and become Jewish, and then now all of a sudden their DNA is in the mixture too, and that's what's known as exogamy, marrying outside of your population group. But you have to have a lot of it for many generations for it to take a hold. So when you look at the history and the migrations of people and things like that, Europe, you get, I guess, what you could call like the pockets of regional endogamy. So like Northwestern Europeans, in a sense, you could say it's like endogamy for the admixture readings. But when you're looking at the actual DNA matches and such, you're not looking at as much multiple relatedness and all of the things that you deal with at endogamous population groups. So it does vary in a sense. So, I guess you could say that everyone's endogamous. It's just some are so little, have such little endogamy that it's, almost none. And then others where it goes beyond endogamy and gets into recent pedigree collapse or actual multiple relationships of, like double relationships and things like that. There's no chance my dad is Middle Eastern. Yeah, but it's just, you had North African, which, I guess, it's just a misreading of stuff. That this is the thing with the admixtures. It just don't take them too seriously. My Heritage can also sort the matches by the amount of shared segments. Oh, I'll need to look at that. I didn't realize that you could do that on My Heritage too. Take a quick look at that. Oh yeah, you can. Huh. Can't believe I never noticed that. So yeah, you can look by shared segments on My Heritage. So all right, thank you for letting us know. Hello, everyone. Just popping by to say hi, heading to work, so we'll probably miss the stream. Take care, everyone. Well, thank you for hopping in. Always wonderful to have our Faroe Islands representation jumping in for a second. So thank you from the very north side of the world. Or to the north side of the world. Yeah, I want Ancestry to have a buy 10, get one free, like those coffee shop punch cards. Yeah, that honestly, that I think that would be a great program to instill for genealogists, because I mean, we are buying so many. Charlie, good to have you. Wonderful to have you in here. We got Patsy Gogo coming in from Finland. Thank you for joining. How long have I been going? Oh, okay, just under an hour. Yeah. Oh, and a friendly reminder, smash that like button. Thank you, Weeping. Thank you. All right, let's see. All right, that's kind of a, we'll just do it. All right, question. My grandfather took a Y-DNA test 37 level, only one decent match at 37, distance of 1. I'm guessing you just got in here. I'm guessing you just got in here. Because I actually just answered a question basically just like this not that long ago. All right, but let's continue. Well, actually, never mind. This one's a little bit different. Okay, my grandfather took a Y-DNA test, 37 level, only one decent match at 37, distance of 1. The Y-DNA match is also an autosomal match, 70 centimorgans across one segment. That's a big segment. Along with his father, 135 centimorgans across 3 segments. That's pretty good stuff going on there. Autosomal matches connected to that same family number between 40 to 400 centimorgans. My grandfather and the Y-DNA match have male lines that go to different parts of Europe, England, and Germany, respectively. Could this be a possible NPE, perhaps via the paternal line? I mean, it seems so. There's 2 main possibilities, I think, going on here. One is that this Y-DNA match and the autosomal match with this family is it is truly your grandfather's patrilineal line, and there is an NPE on that specific line. The other option is that it's kind of a coincidence that you're matching on both the Y-DNA and the autosomal DNA, because the Y-DNA may be indicating a much more distant connected ancestry, because at 37 with a genetic distance of 1, you're looking at something that could be, hundreds, if not thousands of years back, where your most recent common ancestor is. But it could also be very recent, because it could just be that one genetic distance that you're finding at 37 just happens to be the only one that's different. And if you did the bigger tests, it would actually be a lot higher. So I'm kind of jumping around too much, but the main thing being that it's going to be one of those 2 things. So what you want to do is you want to try to figure out if you can either disprove or prove one way or the other. So if you have your patrilineal line traced out and they have their patrilineal line traced out, try to see, well, I guess, I mean, you say, where is it? Yeah, you said that you have multiple autosomal matches, I assume, numbering between 40 and 400 centimorgans, which is really close. 400 centimorgans is a really close match. I mean, that's a match where you will be finding that they're going to be related within the past couple hundred years. Just a question of, is it truly on that the paternal line, or is it through a different line? And that, like I said, the paternal ancestry connection is more distant and it's just a coincidence. Now, if you have a ton of their family members already figured out, what you need to do is you need to do a what are the odds analysis, a WADO analysis, which is on DNA Painter. I'm not going to pull one up right now because I have all sorts of stuff that I really can't let anybody look at because it's some really cool upcoming stuff for my channel. I don't want to give it away. But yeah, if you go to do the what are the odds analysis, there's a lot of guides that you can look at on how to do that. But if you have as many matches as you say you do in this family, and especially with this 400 centimorgan match, it should give you a pretty good idea of where you and your grandfather specifically fit into the tree. And yeah, hopefully that'll be helpful for you. But I mean, that's a rarity though, to be able to get a Y DNA match who then also ends up being a really good autosomal match. So yeah. Okay. Joseph Jarrett, you mentioned last time that you could show me our family connection. Could you please do that now? I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said that if you have a family tree online or something like that, I'd probably be able to figure it out. But I think if I remember correctly, I tried to look and I couldn't find anything. So let's see. I see you commented here a few names. Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility. I would need to know the specific ancestors to pull up their tree. So most especially whichever ancestors of those were Dutch Jewish, if you can tell me their names, then I'd be able to pull up the tree and figure out how we're related. Yeah, MyHeritage will finally be coming out with their new admixtures in June. Yeah, I forgot when they said it was going to be coming out, but I'm super excited for the release, and I'm really, really, really hopeful that they're actually going to release a white paper for it. I didn't ask any single one of them when I talked to any of them, which actually I need to email them for a thing coming up. Even with Watto, I haven't had much luck when people don't speak either because they're hiding things or they really don't know. Yeah, I mean, when you run into that sort of an issue, if people are just hiding stuff, and especially if if you're worried that, okay, well, I'm looking at these records, but, my grandparents or my parents or whoever, I have reason to believe they might have lied on this, you're kind of stuck, especially if no one else in the family is willing to work with you on it. Yeah, Joseph in Prague, you should build out on Genie to find that connection. If you build out on Genie, my Genie profile is public. I'm pretty sure you can find it pretty easily, and you just go and see, are you related to me? And it'll show you how. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You're welcome. Hopefully that was helpful. You're definitely in a good spot to have that Y DNA connection and all those matches with one being 400 centimorgans. Karma, I'm really late today. Hello from Nebraska. Hello, Karma. Wonderful to see you. Glad you were able to make it just in time. I'm actually I don't know if anyone's noticed. My mom said on the last stream, or maybe it was the one before that, she was like, I could so tell that you were so tired. And I don't feel quite as tired as I did on that one, but I'm definitely feeling a bit tired, so I'm probably not gonna go super long today. I know sometimes I go 2 hours and stuff, which I don't know. Tell me, what do you all think? What's better, if I do just like an hour stream or like the multiple hour streams, or do you just wish I could stream all day and you could just tap in whenever? Gazillion PT Fernandez is Portuguese, probably Sephardic. Most Portuguese have a bit of North African and Middle Eastern. Yeah, I mean, I would say Fernandez is Portuguese, possibly Sephardic. We need to figure out more about the family. Fortunately, that's the thing with the surnames with Sephardic families is, there's so many that are Portuguese or Spanish names that are adopted by so many non-Sephardic families. Could I find you as a match on MyHeritage? I mean, it's not going to be quite the same as going on Genie to figure out exactly how you're related, or like I said, if you know a specific, like if you can send me the name, birth, and death date of a specific ancestor that you know is Dutch Jewish, then yeah. Oh yeah. I figured you were responding to him, just kind of saying it more as like in general, because I think you experienced this a bunch gazillion, because I feel like you've kind of applauded me in some videos about this. At least I feel like I've seen your comments about it, where basically, people they see those names, they're like, oh, it's got to be Sephardic, and then they just take it as it has to be Sephardic when it really is could be, but yeah, people just jumping ahead of themselves. But if you're Jewish and you have something like that, you're leaning a bit more. But these people that are like, oh well, my family, we came from Mexico, and we have Fernandez. Yeah. I feel like the 1.5 to 2 hour mark has been the sweet spot. Yeah, that's kind of usually where I end. But I don't know. Got zoned into a creepy pasta story. Pretty good one. Scorpion, my heritage says I'm 3.5% Ashkenazi Jewish. The J test on GEDmatch agrees. Ancestry doesn't show that. Is it accurate? I'm maybe not. I mean, there's no way that I could tell you with certainty yes or no. All I can tell you is that it's giving you a possible hint that you have Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. Thus, if you as you research your family, you can use that to try to figure out if it's true or not. So how do you do that? Well, when you look at how much DNA you should expect from a certain ancestor, you correlate that. So 3.5% correlates to third great grandparents. So the best way to do it is once you've correlated to a generation. So basically, if this is true and it's coming from one ancestor of yours, it would be a single third great grandparent, most likely. Could be a second great grandparent, or could be a fourth great grandparent. So the goal then becomes identify every single one of your third great grandparents. Go through all of them and see, do any of them stick out in any way as being Jewish? You can go by the surname hints, you can go by the regional hints and things like that. But before you come to any sort of conclusion about which one's Jewish or not, you really should try to find something that is quite substantial. So something that says, married by a rabbi, or maybe you find, a connection to a synagogue, or where they're buried, or where their parents are buried, or just, whatever. But the main thing is, step one, build out your family tree to identify all those third great grandparents, and then go through each one. Or build it out to each one. Step two is go through each one, see if you can identify them as Jewish. If you can't find any that seem to stick out as possibly Jewish, or the ones that you would think, okay, they might be Jewish, then you go to your fourth great grandparents. You look at all of that. So it's a lot of work, but that would be the way to do it. Thanks. I haven't found anything yet. I Googled meaning of last name Whelans. Apparently it can be Jewish. They're all from Newcastle. Where else to look? Yeah, just be very careful about the whole surname thing, though. There are surnames that may seem Jewish, but might not be. And the best way to really think about a lot of that stuff is just the fact that most Jewish families adopted their surnames in the past couple hundred years. So they adopted surnames that were pretty similar to wherever they lived. So think of it like this. Think of it as if all of the sudden there was a ton of people within the U.S. that were all forced to take a surname. So this is kind of like when Napoleon went through Europe. Everyone all of a sudden was forced to take a surname. Well, instead, someone's taken over the U.S. and now we have to have a surname. So everyone gets to pick their own one. Well, what are you going to pick? And what words are you going to use? Well, if you're in the US like I am, you're probably going to pick English words. And so, I mean, maybe you'd pick something else that, is a family name that or something like that. But like, you're probably going to get a lot of English words, rock star or, I don't know, just think of anything. But it's like that same thing where they just picked all these words. So, Schreiber, which I think is that a Taylor or something, or like, or just like Wheeler, or just think of like the generic English name words, the surnames that you think of. So it's kind of like that same thing. It's just picking those sorts of things. So hopefully that makes sense. So it's like you can use the surnames as a hint, but don't take it as a conclusion of that's the Jewish ancestor. Next lifetime, Brendan, I have a match about third cousin range, and she shares 318 centimorgans with my grand uncle, but 769 centimorgans with his first cousin. She also shares 201 centimorgans with my dad and 518 with that 769 cousin's son. Is this a big enough difference to prove she's from their line? It seems to indicate that would be the likely case, but I would suggest doing a what are the odds analysis of this so you can get a better sense of what are all the possible hypotheses, and what might be something that you aren't considering of how that may be related. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, my dad shows 2.8% Ashkenazi, and I'm at 1%. Of course, it's on my dad's side, the difficult side. Yeah. All right. How can my mom be so Ashkenazi despite having a very brown mom? Honestly, I know a lot of Ashkenazi Jews who are quite brown, and even in my own family, I've had a lot of family members who have been mistaken as Mexican or Puerto Rican or Cuban or some sort of something else. And granted, a lot of that side has Sephardi ancestry too. But the thing is, phenotype and genotype don't always correlate as well as people would hope. Yeah. So Pimentel in Jamaica equals almost certainly Jewish. Pimentel in Portugal, just a random Portuguese guy. Yeah, geographical context matters a lot. I think really what it just comes down to is it's never enough to be conclusive. It's only evidence of supporting evidence. So yeah, you get a Pimentel in Jamaica, yeah, they're probably going to be Jewish. You go down to Brazil, it's going to be a very different thing. Yeah. So at Joseph Impra, some testing companies say Ashkenazi when they just mean Jewish. Yeah, that's another way to think about it too. I think Ancestry calls it European Jewish, which is a much better way to do it. Much better way. All right. Let's I still didn't see this. All right, let's see. Did we ha 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 ha. All right. And, oh yeah, I think I looked at that. This one's like really big. This one's, and I think we'd answered stuff from necessary parking. I feel like we have. I feel like I've seen necessary parking. Oh, okay, yeah, I answered one of their questions not too long ago. This one. Or yeah, okay. Yeah, they've had a lot of questions answered. I don't need to worry about it. All right, well, let's go by now. I wonder how far back I am now. How far back? Let's see. Is this going to work? Yeah, it does work. Yay. All right. Sorry, just reading through some of the chat. All right. So I think I'm trying to find where I get to where it's like all have been reviewed. Because going by newest, it's putting everything really far. Basically, I'm trying to answer some of these really old questions. Is it past? Wow. War hundo. Okay, there we go. Wow. Wowza. Wowza. Okay. Yeah, you can kind of tell what I. All right. Big differences in results. I have no known ancestors or relatives of any other origin than Finnish. 99% Finnish and 1% Swedish and Denmark. And of course, it's my heritage that's the one that's slightly different. 80.2% Finnish, 18.7% Scandinavian, then that 1.1% Inuit, which I remember a while back. I think it had to do with the whole Sami thing. There were people talking about how they thought the whole Inuit reading being common for Finnish people had to do with Sami ancestry, I think. I can't remember 100%, but honestly, this person told me, yeah, all I know is Finnish. I'd be like, yeah, not surprising results necessarily. Let's see what the chat have to say. We've got might be a misread. Yeah, for me, it'd be more surprising to not see some Swedish and people from Finland and vice versa. Norse Gremlin. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically that one's so old too. Oh, they're still active. But yeah, I would not. That's not surprising. Not surprising in the least bit. Hopefully, they don't watch me react to that and be like, "Wow, that was a disappointing reaction." All right. Hello, I'm trying to get a real understanding of my Ancestry DNA results. Came across your channel and really love the way you explain things. Thank you. Where is this post from? It says 2 years, but sometimes January 19th, 2022. Yeah, 2 years. All right. Longer than 2 years, technically. All right. Some background information. I am half Black and Mexican, and I have done family tree DNA and know that I am haplogroup A2D. I found some interesting things in my results that were unexpected. I've been trying to find a starting point to research my great grandparents. I also find that my daughter's DNA is extremely interesting. She has a higher percentage for Spain than I thought, or I am most likely not understanding something in her genetics. Her father, possibly full Black, was born in Virginia, and a lot of her paternal matches were located in North Carolina and Virginia areas. Mother's side, grandmother born in Texas, listed on Texas birth index. Great grandmother born in Texas, found in church records. Great grandfather born in Sierra Mojada, Kuala de Zaragoza, blah, 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 blah. Grandfather born in Texas, only found the place of birth on Social Security death index. Great grandmother unknown, strong chance her family name change once immigrated to the US, but little is known about her or where she died. I know she passed away before my mother was born, which is 1956. Great grandfather born in Mochican, Mexico, a strong possibility to change his name. I'd love any feedback and thoughts. Thank you. All right. So we have her. I'm not going to worry about the daughter so much because it's, I think we're focused on the great grandparents, really. So with the mom, Indigenous Americas, Spain, Portugal, So, I mean, it seems like the mom comes from a mostly Mexican ancestry. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, in terms of looking at the admixtures, there's not really going to be anything to glean from it. I mean, we have the communities for you, early Virginia African Americans, which would presumably, I guess, be from your dad's side. But it seems like you're more focused on your mother's side. Okay. And then with your mom, yeah, I mean, just kind of a typical Mexican mixture of, indigenous Spain, Portugal, Basque, obviously, yeah. Indigenous Americas, and then a whole hodgepodge of other stuff. So it's really the admixtures just aren't helpful here. What's going to be helpful is looking at your DNA matches, and most specifically your mom's DNA matches. So, if you're looking for your great grandmother, that means that's your mom's grandmother. So that's going to be a large percentage of her ancestry. And so looking at your matches should be helpful. Now you've tested at Ancestry. Yeah. Yeah, that's Ancestry. So what I would suggest too, upload your results to MyHeritage, to Family Tree DNA. You can even link it to genie.com. You could probably upload it to Living DNA, although I don't know if you'd really find many matches there. And then also upload it to GEDmatch, because the more matches you get, the better off things are going to be for actually trying to figure out how you're related, or not how you're related because you didn't ask about matches, but figure out who are your great grandparents. And it's going to take a lot of work. Especially if they're coming from areas of Mexico where it's very limited genealogical resources, which I know some places in Mexico have very limited resources for genealogy. So hopefully that helps. Unfortunately, the admixtures do nothing but just add confusion here. Granted, if we had looked at mom and all of a sudden we saw, 8% Ashkenazi Jewish, or 8% something then you're kind of like, okay, well, maybe you had an ancestor that was second great grandparent or something from that ancestry. But yeah. Otherwise, not really, unfortunately, nothing to glean from it. So, all right. So, all right, getting some of these older ones. Princess Piper. All right, we'll answer this. Hi, thank you for your help with my DNA question. From my Ancestry DNA results, it says I am 30% Norway, 27% England and Northwestern Europe, 22% Wales, 7% Ireland, 7% Scotland, 4% Sweden and Denmark, 3% Germanic Europe. According to the family history I have done, this matches very well. My mom's mother was born and raised in Norway near the Norway-Sweden border. They immigrated from Norway in the late 1700s. My second great-grandfather on my dad's side immigrated from North Wales in 1840. My grandmother on my father's side was half German, as far as I can tell. They immigrated from Germany in the 1700s, but they were Dunkers, Church of the Brethren, and lived in strictly German communities and only married other persons of German descent. My maternal great-grandfather was from Ireland. My maternal great-grandmother was born in New Orleans to Irish immigrants who were of Irish, English, and Scottish descent. Anyway, my ancestry DNA matches my research. On the other hand, I uploaded my raw DNA to my heritage site and results there are completely different. Their DNA analysis shows that I am 94.2% English, 3.5% West Asian, with 1.3% Scandinavian. The difference between these two results is huge. Why the huge difference? This is why I've never trusted my heritage DNA analysis. Interestingly, I noticed 75 DNA matches from the West Asian category and over 7,000 from the Scandinavian category. If you could explain to me why the results from these two sites are so dramatically different, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah De La Fuente. Now, this is kind of one way I think a lot of people might put it. My heritage is not accurate whatsoever. Heard a lot of bad things and blah, blah, blah. And I wouldn't really put it that way. I think the way that I would say is that I hear the most complaints about my heritage's admixture more than any other site in terms of people who know their ancestry finding my heritage has it the most off, which seems to be the case here. And honestly, the simple answer with, why are they so dramatically different is this two sites are just doing the same thing, but kind of just slightly different in a way. So I guess it almost kind of being like, it'd be a comparison of like you have two painters and you ask them both paint this statue. And the paintings are going to come out somewhat similar, but they're going to be different. Now, maybe that's not the best correlation with this, but I feel like that's kind of a good analogy is just, they kind of show you the same thing. It's just they're both slightly different. And just, with my heritage, everyone keeps saying my heritage has a wonky eye, so their paintings keep coming out weird. Such a weird way for me to put it. But yeah, so I mean, that's really the main thing here. And I mean, yeah, this is a great example of why I think it's not really useful to harp on the admixtures too much when it comes to the results. So, boom. Answered 2 years later. And then, oh yeah, that one. Veer, which I think, yeah. All right, let's see. We've got John Tyner joining in. Welcome, John. Karma finally visited a new genealogy library ran by the Genealogical Society on Saturday. We'll be back soon. Hopefully, they have hours that make it difficult for me to go during the week. Yeah, most genealogy libraries, because they're often run by volunteers or very minimal staff, usually have very limited hours, and it's usually hours that are terrible for tons of people. Do you know any PT sources aside from Parrish or Torre de Tombeau records? I know that's for Gazillion. I wouldn't be able to answer it. I just saw Torre de Tombeau, which I am slightly familiar with. But yeah. Daniel, do you think my heritage will ever get better, Jarrett? Well, we're going to find out in June when they roll out their new admixture readings. So, I'm hopeful. I'm especially hopeful they'll release a white paper with it too, but we'll have to see. My heritage has never had an update since their rollout at RootTech. They said they finally will come out with a new one in June, so just a few months away. Yeah. Different DNA companies have different data and different algorithms. This is why I don't focus too much on the mixtures, and they really aren't. The admixtures don't give us that much information anyway, unless you really are coming from a place of no knowledge of your family ancestry. Now, obviously, not always the case. If there is something hiding in there, it can certainly make it pop out. But as often as that does happen, I feel like sometimes it kind of gets overblown a bit sometimes that, yeah. So, all right. Well, I've been going for an hour and a half, so I think that's pretty good. I think I'm gonna call it there. What did I do there? Oh, that's what I wanted to do. So, thank you all so much for joining as usual. Still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do on Friday for Friday stream on the main channel. So, if anyone has any ideas of something you'd like me to do, let me know. I have a list of stuff, but I've been dealing with a lot of things and haven't been able to focus as much, unfortunately. But thank you, everybody. Definitely like and subscribe. If you're not familiar with the Discord, definitely jump on the Discord, especially if you have lots of questions you want to answer, or if you have something where it might take multiple questions. But thank you so much. Oh yeah, Gene Wilder. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do Gene Wilder. Yeah. All right. Yeah. We'll see. So, but you all have a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully I will see a bunch of you on Friday. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and I'm